We need to start talking more about the things that matter to people and less, Madam Speaker, about these bare attacks that the Honourable Mr. Bosino told us.
Well, it's been a very long week for all of us, not least for the Chief Minister, who I bet can't wait to put a line under this budget session ahead of the weekend and start with a clean slate on Monday. Parliament, of course, returns on Tuesday, but that's just to dot the I's and cross the T's. Immediately after Fabian Picardo delivered his budget on Monday, the government had to reverse a decision on a pollution levy after instant opposition to it. Speaking on Gibraltar Today at the start of the week, the Chief Minister then added insult to injury by saying he himself was caught up in the measure because he'd bought a second-hand Porsche that was over 10 years old. This was an issue he chose to explain himself on today.
We're not tone deaf. We're clear that when we get something wrong, we have to change it, and we got it wrong. And Madam Speaker, it's also true that in explaining that outside of this place, I made a mistake. I made a mistake because people have interpreted that my seeking to show that this levy would apply to me also as a driver has been suggested by people to be me somehow bragging or showing off. Nothing could be further from the truth.
In his closing address, Fabian Picardo wanted to make clear he and his government were not perfect, but that they had Gibraltar's best interests at heart. With news of a possible demonstration this afternoon, which would be the second this week, he chose to address issues raised by protesters point by point. The levy, he reassured them, was dead and buried, and he was going to leave their cars alone. The Chief Minister defended the right to protest, even saying he was willing to meet the demonstrators and would be reaching out to them. But the House unanimously opposed online anonymous threats of criminal violence and personal damage. This, he said, is not the Gibraltar anyone deserves. Fabian Picardo had begun his address saying his bite was worse than his bark, but said his bite would only be directed at facts, data and finances, and not at personal insults. He praised the newcomers to the House, saying he'd been impressed by their energy, vigour and ability. Specifically on the budget and on politics more generally, he said these had to be relevant to the people and on what the people wanted to know about. Specifically on the budget and on politics more generally, he said these had to be relevant to the people and on what the people wanted to know about. Focusing on anything else, he added, degrades politics and the system in general.
If young people are hearing that the opposition say that the government has raided a fund, that's what starts the hairs running. And people saying, oh, for goodness sake, that sounds like thieving, like robbery, the raiding. That degrades politics. And what it does, Madam Speaker, which is bad, is it doesn't poison people against us only. Of course, it's designed to poison people against us. It poisons the well. It poisons the well. And it poisons against all of us in the long term. This affects the public, in particular young people. So I entirely agree with the Honourable Gentleman. We need to do this in a different way.
Well, despite it having been quite a long week, the Chief Minister did fight back today in Parliament over 5 hours against accusations that he's a spent force, reminding the opposition, the GSD opposition, that it was them that kept losing elections.